Fun facts about this hair, I accidentally set it on fire a couple weeks ago. Hi, my name is Dami. I'm a writer, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I got my publishing deal. So if you've been watching my videos up until this point, you probably already know that I have an agent, but I did get my publishing deal for my first book before I got an agent, so I actually got that unagented. I did query my first book, but in the end it was not picked up by an agent. It was picked up by a small press, and I'll go into more details as to why and how and all that stuff and how it happened. So stick around, stay tuned. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. Let's make this happen. So I got my publishing deal for my first book called Children with Gifts. Children with Gifts is not the first book I've ever written, but it is the first book that I ever pursued publishing with. Children with Gifts is a YA speculative fiction fantasy about teenagers with powers that live in a society very similar to our own. They are hired to steal back something that was stolen from a business tech mogul, but they may or may not decide to complete a heist of their own. I was not ready for querying when I started querying. I thought I was, but I was not ready. I knew it was going to be a hot mess for me. I am an overthinker. I'm an overplanner. I am to put 19 different socks in the Amazon cart and think about it for about 19 business days before I decide to not buy any of the socks sort of person. So I did a lot of research before I started querying, and I really did try to get my query package as in tip-top shape. I do recommend the subreddit. I think it's Publishing Tips or Our Published Tips, something like that. I will link the subreddit down below for anyone who's querying. They are a bit brutal. You can post your query letter, up there. People will critique and give suggestions, feedback. They can be a little bit brutal, so harden that exterior, but I did find it helpful. So I cleaned up my query as best as I could. Spent a couple months doing that, worked on my summary, and then started querying in August 2022. Yes. Going back, looking at that original query letter, it was not up to par. But hindsight is 2020. My advice for anybody who's a first-time querier is to get as much feedback from as many people as possible. I've said this before in past videos, and I'm going to say it again in this one. Brandon Sanderson does not like querying. If Brandon Sanderson doesn't like querying, it's okay if you don't like it either. So give yourself some grace. Querying is hard. I don't think I have great advice as to how to create the best query letter. I didn't like it. I think for my second book, I kind of got the hang of it a bit, but it's still... Anyway. August 21st, submitted my first query, 2022. I did actually initially get some interest pretty quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean within about a month or so. So within a month, I think I had maybe a partial request, or maybe a full request at that time. And I queried for over a year total. Now, querying can really take a hit on your self-esteem, your self-worth. It's just so many rejections, one after the other. A lot of them are form rejections. I think I got personalized feedback once from a query with my full. That's just how it is nowadays. I think 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even maybe 5 years ago, people were generally getting feedback on full manuscript requests, but that's just not the case anymore. Agents are just inundated and busy and swamped, and we're just not seeing that anymore. It really sucks, and it is just how it is. Another thing about querying for me personally was, it's a very arduous, self-esteem rattling process to just get so much feedback on something you've worked on for a very long time, your baby, right? It can be just a very trying time for your identity as a writer. My advice for that is find a really good support group of writers, find a really good support group outside of the writing community so you have a safe space to rant and be a little bit unhinged without pooping where you eat. I didn't have a lot of writer friends when I first started querying. I was just very outside of the scene. I'd been in medical school and residency for the last 8 years. But as a result, I would say gave you a bit of resilience. So during the years of medical school and residency for me, I did not do a lot of writing. Children with Gifts I did work on a little bit during residency, but in total, I think Children with Gifts took me 10 years to write, in part because there were just huge gaps of time where I wasn't writing at all because I couldn't. In residency, we're working anywhere between 60 to 80 hours a week. Medical school and residency are some of the hardest years of my life in terms of my own mental health, emotional health, physical health. Honestly, for most people, I think it's some of the hardest years for them too. And then, financially, you're not doing great. Medical school is so grueling. You can't have another job in medical school. And people who do, snaps, man. I was dumb, so I was not able to take on another job and be a medical student. For most people, medical school is full-time student and every waking moment studying, and then just repeat, and you just do that for 4 years. Well, for at least for 1.5, 2 years. The last 2 years of medical school, I'm a little bit all over the place in this video. I hope you guys are okay with that today. The last 2 years of medical school is when you're doing all of your, what we call like clinical rotation. So you're going into the hospital to do a lot of, to work alongside the team and learn more about different fields of medicine, neurology, internal medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, all the type of stuff. And you're rotating usually anywhere between every 1 to 2 months. So by the time you kind of have a handle on that specialty, you're moving on to the next specialty. So you're just kind of always feeling like you're a fish out of water, always just like flailing around trying to not be in the way. So it can just be very trying from that perspective too. You want to learn, but you don't want to be in the way. You want to be helpful. You're not. You're a medical student. You're not helpful. But you want to do your best and you want to learn. This is why you're here. And then residency starts, and residency is just work. Not a lot of support, not a lot of sleep, work, switch from nights to days, do it again, work, 80 hours. You cannot pick up another job. You're not paid enough as a resident, okay? That's a whole separate, whatever, doesn't matter. But you're not paid enough as a resident, and you can't get another job as a resident, which means you're just broke. And so my point is, medical residency sucks. I had really great social support, and that is the only reason I made it all the way through. I feel like I'm a resilient person. I can bounce back. During querying, and it sucked, and sometimes you really are thinking to yourself, who am I to think that I'm good enough to be published? Who am I to think I can survive medical school and residency? But I did that though. So I think having the practice of resilience, if you will, through medical school and residency was frankly helpful for the resilience that was necessary for the querying process. I was like, I have dealt with foolishness and I'm still standing. Yeah. So in conclusion, medical school and training really just prepared me for the emotional onslaught that would be querying. Now, querying is different because, medical school residency, there's an aspect of that being a job, career. There's a separation between that and you. I know lots of people like to talk about being a physician as like a calling, and I think that's, for people who feel that way, I think that's great if that's you, if you really feel like it's a calling. I personally resonate more with the identity as a writer than I do as a physician, frankly. I'm very happy to be a physician. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a physician, and I love being a physician. I love my job. I love what I do. But as like, who am I at my core? I would say I am a writer, storyteller before I am a physician, if that makes sense. And so to a degree, the emotional connection that I have to writing did make the querying process still like challenging, despite the fact that, I do feel like I'm a pretty resilient, bounce back person. It was still difficult. There's still times it was difficult. There's still times I kind of felt very much like I'm not good enough. Who I think this is delusional behavior. Even though I've been recognized in the past for my writing, still feeling like with this querying process, like a big hit, right? To your your self-esteem, to how you feel about yourself and your identity. I'll post some of the rejections up. I'll have them flying around, I guess, somewhere on the screen, so you can take a look and pause and read some of those just to kind of see what those look like. In March 2022, I saw a tweet from Lauren Davila. She's an acquisitions editor at Inked and Gray Press, and the tweet said something along the lines of, really like looking for some great superhero stories right about now. I did not mention this at the beginning of the video, but I pitched my story as Six of Crows meets X-Men. It's really more like Six of Crows meets X-Force, but when I saw her tweet, this was back in March, and it was actually a couple weeks old at the time I saw her tweet, and her submission inbox was closed. So I saw this tweet late. I'm a huge proponent of always ask, at least ask. Worst that the person can say is no, which does not change your situation at all. You're in the exact same situation now that you were in 5 seconds ago, and the person says no. The best thing that can happen is the thing that you wanted to happen. So I'm a huge advocate, proponent of that philosophy. However, at the same time, I don't want to be a nuisance. I think following directions is important. Reading is vital. Comprehension is vital. She said her submission inbox is closed now. I saw this tweet late. So finally, after about a week of me dilly-dallying a little bit, not sure what to do, I decided to just message her and say, hey, I saw your submission inbox is closed, but I also saw this tweet. Is it okay if I submit my query and everything, or I'm also obviously okay with waiting? And she said, send it over, and so I did. In June, again, this is going to be 2023, I was accepted into the Write Mentor program, and I got to work with Melissa Welliver, and she's a YA speculative fiction writer. I actually have some of her books here, and she wrote My Love Life and the Apocalypse. This is one of her books, and this one recently came out, and it's Soulmates and Other Ways to Die. And so I definitely recommend checking her out. But she's a YA speculative fiction writer, and she took me on as her mentee. And so in June, I was accepted into that program, and this was so exciting, impactful, meaningful for me because right after college, I spent 4 years in medical school, then I spent 4 years in residency where I did very minimal writing. And so I was just so disconnected from like the writing community, the writing sphere. You just feel very, very outside of the loop, outside of the know in a lot of ways. And so connecting with somebody who I could ask questions, they can read my story. And what she read was Children with Gifts. And so we got to start working together in the summertime. And over the summer, we did like some just exercises with Children with Gifts that involved like Save the Cat, like plot beats. And that's actually my first time learning about that. So I workshopped a lot of Children with Gifts during that time. I didn't actively query new agents while I was over that summer of 2023. My thought was whatever's out there is out there. I'll see whoever like bites and things like that. But otherwise, I'm going to see if I can really elevate my story. And through working with Melissa and kind of doing these exercises and I'm thinking about the characters and timing and pacing and things like that just a little bit differently, there's just more of like a technical aspect to it, which I very much valued. During this year of querying, I also learned a lot about the market. Like what does publishing want? What does that mean? And it's not something I really ever considered or thought about until I started querying. Like, what does it mean when they say, is this book marketable? This was naive, but I never really considered it, thinking, well, don't people just want a wide variety of stories to be told? As for me, when I first started this querying process and people asked for comps, I'm thinking to myself, well, don't I want to write something that's like different or hasn't been published before? And that's not to say that my book has never been done before. That's not to say my concept is particularly novel. I really don't think it is, to be quite honest. It's a heist plot with kids with powers. Like, this is not a particularly novel idea. I'm not trying to create something derivative. I'm trying to create something new, something exciting, something that hasn't necessarily been done quite in this way before. Pointing out comps almost seems like I tried to mishmash things together on purpose. I just had a hard time wrapping my brain around it. I understand now why, from a marketing perspective, comps are helpful, why publishers are looking for it. Get with the program when you need to get with the program, honestly. You want comps, fine, here are your comps. As long as they're accurate, right, and correct. Something that I learned so much about was just the marketing aspect of publishing, and that's what publishing cares most about, because publishing, they're trying to make money. They want to know they can sell your book. They want to know they can make money off of your book, and you need to prove that to them. That's what all of this is. Writing or working on Children with Gifts with Melissa Welliver. Like I said, I stopped actively querying, so I didn't send out new queries. I just kind of waited on old ones to get back to me, and they were all rejections, obviously. I honestly started to give up a little bit on Children with Gifts ever being published, even though I was doing a lot of great work with it. I saw Children with Gifts as a book that could potentially be published once I'd published something else. And the reason I say this is because I started to have a better understanding of things like marketing, publishing, and why that matters to the publishers rather. Not necessarily readers. What's most important, frankly, to get my books out there is that publishing can market it and they believe that they can market it. I started to understand that a little bit more. And I started to feel, and I don't even know if this is necessarily accurate, this is just more of like kind of the self-esteem hit per se, but I started to feel maybe Children with Gifts isn't just as easily marketable. Like, it's not as punchy as what publishers may be looking for right now. But I still felt like, this is good. I can make it even better. And maybe this is a book that gets published once the punchy debut sort of book does come out.
Hello, Raccoon editing me featuring a dog. Realized I wasn't super clear when I was explaining this in the video now that I'm editing it because I was so tired. Plot twist, I'm still tired. One of the nice things about small press is that they are more likely to pick up stories that big publishers, big traditional publishers may not be as likely to take on. Big publishers want to make money. That's a priority. Of course, everyone's priority is to make money. We live in a late stage capitalist society. I want to make money. I have rent to pay. But their number one priority is making some money. And so they want stuff that's going to guarantee to do well, so less likely to take on stories that are maybe go against the grain or maybe not necessarily a big pop-in genres, that sort of thing. So, but small press, generally speaking, more open to things that are a little bit off the beaten path. Hopefully that makes more sense. Goodbye.
So remember, I started working with Melissa Welliver in the Right Mentee, Right Mentor program, June, July-ish. Summer happens. What's going on in the real world for me? In the real world for me, I have opened my own private practice clinic. And I work a couple days a week plus Saturdays. Around the fall, I also picked up a second job, which was working at a college counseling center. So there was a period of time, a full month that overlapped where I was working 6 days a week because I was working like Monday, Tuesdays at the counseling center, then like Wednesdays through Saturdays at my own private practice. So I was working 6 days a week for about a month and a half. And it was brutal. I was like, I don't know how I did this in residency every single week for like 4 years, but I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. The icing on the cake was I had an infection. Specifically, I had an abscess. One day I woke up and it was not better and it was way worse. And so I had to go to the ER to get an incision and drainage. And this was on my only day off. I'd had a rough week. I had worked last month 6 days a week. I was just tired. I was exhausted. And frankly, I wasn't even thinking about children with gifts. Frankly, I wasn't even thinking about it anymore. I was just trying to survive. On my 31st birthday, I get this email. Thank you so much for your patience as I took the time to look over your manuscript and chat with the rest of the team about your fantastic novel. And it is my absolute pleasure to extend an offer of publication. So yes, that is the beginning of the email that I received from Lauren Davila, the acquisitions editor from Inked and Gray Press. And again, I was not even thinking about my book at this point in time. I was just like, how do I make it to 5 days a week? But I did, and I made it with a publishing deal. So what happens after I get a publishing deal from a small press? So generally speaking, if you are pursuing traditional publishing and you are looking for an agent, the general consensus is do not also submit to small presses that accept people unagented. The reason for that is if the small press says, yes, we'd like to offer you publication, my agent's job is to represent you to publishers. If you already have the publishing deal, then what's the point? So at that point in time, I reached out to agents who had my full manuscript and said, hey, I have a publishing offer. Would you still be interested in representing me if I were to go with this deal? Most of the conversations I had, and it was more of a back and forth conversation, honestly, most of the conversations I had were like, if you are open to not accepting Ink's publication deal and potentially going out wider, I may be interested in picking this up. Like I said before, when I was working on this book with Melissa over the summer, I kind of had this feeling that I don't know if this is going to get published because I don't know if it is marketable in a very punchy way that like publishing kind of seems to like. I think this is like something that they'd be more likely to pick up from me if I'd already had something under my belt, like if I'd already published something else. In the end, I went with the publishing deal because my thought was I hadn't had an offer yet from an agent, which tells me I haven't had an agent tell me that they felt like they could publish my book yet. But I have a publishing deal where they're saying, we think we can publish your book. I already have a publishing deal. I'm going to go with that. Winston! Hi! You're snoring. Yeah. Maybe because you're covering your whole face with your paw. I bet you can't breathe good. Good morning. Oh no, don't come here. Okay, do you want to come up here? Oh my god. You maybe should wake up first. There you go, Winston. Yeah. Yep, you did that. Don't lick my face. We don't do that in this house. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Thank you. I'm happy with that plan. I'm happy I did. I won the publishing deal because I had a publishing deal. So that was that story. I went to a lawyer. I do recommend that if you don't have an agent, go to a lawyer to take a look at the contract. That's exactly what I did. I hired a lawyer who worked in entertainment law and had experience in publishing. But as promised, here are my stats. I sent 128 queries for this story. I received 101 rejections. 101 rejections. CNR, closed no response, 19. I received 8 full requests total and 2 partial requests total, and then 1 offer, obviously, from Inked and Gray Press. So that book comes out next August, and I'm excited for it. I hope you enjoy it as well. That's it for this video. That's all I'm going to be talking about today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, all the good stuff. Hopefully this was somewhat entertaining, somewhat interesting. Sorry that I'm all over the place, and sorry I kind of lost steam at the end there. But yeah. I don't know what video I should do next. Some ideas I have played around with is one, going through Iron Man 1 all the way through Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, and talking about every single movie and summarizing them and with some commentary. But that's one idea I had. Another idea I had was to read old fan fiction. I don't think I'll do that one. But I also maybe provide some updates with my stories. I'm tired. You can tell. I'm all over the place. Jeez Louise. Goodbye.
I wish we could skip right to the end, but we keep dancing slowly.